Are my slides visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So good afternoon, everybody. We will have two sessions now. One on Indian knowledge system and other on multilingualism. These are according to NEP requirements. Now, apart from that, my request is that you don't copy the slides because I've asked Dr. Nanjan Swami to share the slides with all of you uh, today evening or tomorrow after my two sessions are over. Since this is an online session, I have two requests. One, please don't do back channel talking. You are all teachers. The second is that uh, we will have interaction at the end of the first session and little at the end of the second session, because taking questions in the middle in an online program is very disruptive. So please share, mark your doubts and clarifications. We can do it at the end of it, and we can always go back to any slide that we need, okay? Okay, so much about Indian knowledge system that is now a buzzword, and it is in some sense mandated, but we should not be looking at it that way. There is so much to know, about ourselves, and there are so many important things that have happened, are going to happen. We should make provisions for those things, okay? So the outline of my presentation is knowing what knowledge system is, looking at various knowledge systems, looking at values and impact of knowledge systems. In
Nobody informed us.
particular about how Indian knowledge system grew, how it was suppressed, and how it was attempted to destroy, and how
So
it.
this is the guy. He himself, Ashok Rao. Okay.
Yeah, what about it, please? How did IKS still survive? We'll also see what is the current status of IKS, and we will see what is the possible future of IKS and some action points, okay? So what do we mean by a knowledge system? The knowledge system has two components. One, that it's an organized structure. The second is that there is a dynamic process associated with that. These two appear to be slightly contradictory because the more organized the structure is, the more rigid it becomes. It doesn't allow changes or interaction easily. But changes and interaction happen only when a system is dynamic. So this is in some sense like 80-20. 80% it's organized and about 20% it's little open. What does it deal with? It deals with generating and representing content, components, classes, or the type of knowledge that is either domain specific or characterized by the domain relevant features as defined by either the user or the consumer of this knowledge. Similarly, there is a reinforced set of logical relationships that connect the content of various components or attributes of this knowledge system. So the knowledge system is not arbitrary, and it's not really just an collection of various things. There is a lot of order, there is a lot of logical relationship between various parts and components and attributes, etc., etc. Okay. Things to observe in any knowledge system: because it's organized and dynamic, it is more closed. The more organized it is, the more closed it becomes. For example, all of you are sitting in remote areas of India, and you are interacting with me through this internet media. But even though you're listening to my lecture, I cannot come to any of your colleges, come into a classroom and start delivering a lecture. Your classroom, your college or university, your department, whatever it is, very closed already. Similar is things, okay? Because it is dynamic, changes are possible, yet changes are very slow. It's not easy. Sometimes so slow that people who desire changes, a critical mass or a substantially influential mass, sometimes become very impatient and then it explodes. That's what is called reforms. One of the examples is how the Protestant sect came about out of mainstream Christianity. Okay, for almost 1,000 years, Christianity, what you call today the Catholic system, was all prevalent till in Middle and Northern Europe, this Protestant movement started. Okay. Similar has been so many things in the Islamic order. Much more has been there in the Hindu system. Okay. So many independent knowledge systems exist, and the problem with them today is this: they are more competing than cooperating. Nobody tries to take the best of everybody. Everybody thinks that their system, their knowledge system, their belief models is superior to everything else, and everybody else should accept it. This kind of dominance has come from a long time. It's come from last 2,000, 2,500 years. It's nothing new. And today you have new types of dominance, as you see very recently with the war between Iran and Israel, backed by America, all these things, right? So this is the tragedy of humanity. Most knowledge systems that operate today are more competing than cooperating. However, knowledge systems are evolved. All knowledge systems are evolved entities, and they are characterized by the behavior of people who use them or depend on them. The type of people who use or dependent on them are different groups. Some are fundamentalists, some are practitioners, some are observers, some are skeptics, and a large number of blind followers. Okay. This makes up the society and the knowledge system. The new thing today is this knowledge system is highly influenced. Earlier, it was influenced by the ruling class or the religious tenets. But today, material aspects are slowly dominating, and it has dominated a lot in the West, okay, which is much less here, but it's increasing, okay. Today, all of you are more worried about what is the price of petrol or diesel in the morning rather than which guru or which holy book you need to read. First thing is this. Then there are other things. For example, today, before you get charged to run your day, you have to have your mobile charge. Only then you are charged. All these are new material aspects which are influencing our knowledge system, consequently our behavior. Practical examples or insights of knowledge systems or knowledge subsystems or components, as you call it. So let's look at two dominant medical systems that we all go through. One is Ayurvedic system and the other is the allopathic medical system. Very rare you have any synergy between them. If you go to an allopathic doctor, he will say, don't ever take any Ayurveda medicine. If you go to an Ayurveda doctor, he said, don't believe in allopathy, don't take their medicine. So this is what is happening. Okay. This is typically what is happening with various components of knowledge system. Okay. Similarly, look at the education. You have a Gurukula system, you have a madrasa, you have a convent, you have public schooling, all that. Similarly, the economic part, what I call the economic knowledge systems within the knowledge system here, you still have barter system, you have commercial banking, you have post office banking, which gives slightly higher interest. You have Islamic banking, supposedly they don't charge interest. And you have the traditional money lenders, which have been there for the last 4,000 years. Okay. Many or most of these are consolidated over centuries of use, and they are influenced by factors that are cultural, socio, economic, political, and in recent times, resource and environmental factors. For example, now in the last 30 years, selling sand has become a big issue. I still remember the house that we built about 60 years back. Very easy. You want sand for building the house, you send a bullock cart to the riverbed, you hire a laborer, he will extract as much sand as you want, put it into the bullock cart, bring it and deliver it near our house, which is used for construction. Period. Today, sand is the biggest mafia in India. Almost every state government runs because of the sand mafia. Okay. Even worse is water. Selling water was a crime, meaning they would curse you. I'm sure in every region you have that. At least in our in Karnataka, we say if you ask water and they don't give it, in the next lifetime you will be born as a lizard. Okay, that's the kind of curse. Okay, but today water is the most profitable business. So this is what is happening. In maybe in another 10 years, battery may become the most important part of our life. Already it's happening. Every day we want make sure there is enough charge in the battery of our mobile. In another 10 years, since battery is going to run whole of the world, the state of battery will be the most important part of our state of our mind. Okay. So you can see what is open and closed in this. Most of them are closed in what they do. Emergency, inevitable, adapting to changes, some openness is there. Fully open, not possible because there is no organization, there is no structure for it. Fully structured is a disaster because you are not adapting to change. This is the state of knowledge system, okay? So how do we understand knowledge system? Mainly they exhibit expressions, either explicitly, implicitly, or subtly in the manner. We can see the knowledge system by the way it handles the economy, education, law and governance, gender and other equalities and inequalities. This more or less makes up the society. For example, even in India, just about a decade and a half back, Supreme Court passed a rule saying that even girl children have a share in the father's property or parents' property, whatever. So till about 15 years back, even unmarried girls were not counted. Forget about married girls. Today, every child has equal right on the ancestral property. That's the change. So that's more of equality than what it was, which means almost all societies live by inequality. There is no society which is perfectly equal for all. But what we can do is minimize the inequality. Making the inequality very obvious has serious problems for the stability of the society. Okay. One can also infer from many socio-cultural and attitudinal aspects of its citizens, their behavior, conduct, and ethos. For example, we have a festival called Vana Mahotsav, where we venerate and worship the trees. It is only in this knowledge system that we have something like Vana Mahotsav. You may ask, why did Vana Mahotsav come about? Why did we start worshipping trees? Because trees have been part of our life, has been part of our not only evolution, trees and plants play a significant role in our daily life for the good of us, whether for nutrition, whether for shelter, whether for medicine, whether for rituals, flowers and other things, whatever, right? You don't find it in other cultures because other cultures did not evolve in a region which had bountiful nature, plenty of water, plenty of trees and animals. No, they evolved mostly in desert and semi-desert regions where water is scarce, trees are sparse, there is no diversity. So their tenets also have all this. They have no diversity, they don't encourage diversity, all this has come. Unfortunately, many aspects of knowledge systems is linked with religious beliefs so far, strongly or moderately, but slowly this is becoming more objective. As we have more and more of modern science in our education, newer and newer generations are becoming more objective and less subjective. Okay. Now that comes to a serious problem of saying which knowledge system is right. That's a loaded question because all knowledge systems have evolved over time, culture, geography, trade, and interaction. Some have evolved less, some have evolved more. Some knowledge systems are lost. We have no idea what they were, how they practice, what were their tenets, etc., etc. There have also been dramatic shifts in the knowledge system from one to another as a course of the nation. For example, Japan, which was culturally, socially, economically, and even in terms of education, highly Buddhist and Shinto, whatever subsect they call, suddenly in the 17th century, changed their education and industry to the Western model. That's exactly why by Second World War time, they had far better machinery than even American. No wonder they could go and bomb Pearl Harbor, all that. Okay. Similarly, Turkey after the defeat of the Ottoman Empire changed to a Western model for about 15-20 years and again reverted back, but now it has been moderated. Okay. North and South America was recently discovered. In history of time, America, North and South America is what is called yesterday. Okay. 16th century. And till then, whole of North America, South America was filled with indigenous population who practiced their indigenous knowledge system. Suddenly, the Spanish went there in 16th century. And in the last 300-400 years, they have developed a mixture dominated by Western knowledge. China also, till 1950 was Buddhist, Confucian, Taoism, it was dominant. Suddenly in 1950, they decided their industry and education will be dominated by material Marxism. Okay. Russia has gone from conservative, church-dominated monarchy to Marxism and now back to mixture. North Korea is different. It is a one-man knowledge system and we don't know what it is. What has happened is many knowledge systems have adapted or reformed to add value to knowledge system, lest it should be found redundant. The only way to sustain is to allow meaningful adaptation, not adaptation for the sake of adaptation, but meaningful. For example, cities have become very big. Moving around is difficult. So you have to travel by your personal transport or by a public transport like metro or something like that. Today, everybody is connected to everybody. So everybody has a mobile. Earlier, there used to be perhaps one landline for every 5 or 10 houses. Before that, even that was not there. So it is tough to balance because society changes much slower than individuals. Today, an individual immediately changes, says, I don't want my breakfast. My breakfast will be cereal. Then my lunch will be pasta and pizza, whatever, right? Same you see here. We invented chess, but we play cricket. Why we play cricket and less of chess? Chess has less money, but also needs more brain. Cricket uses less brain and has more money. So therefore, whichever has less brain, that is, whichever activity requires less thinking, that will be taken up by the society very gladly. Also, activities which have a lot of commercial or economic interest will be favored. That is why you will see lot of people rushing to computer science field now. Why? It requires least brain among all the disciplines. It also gives maximum money. Fantastic combination. Tomorrow, if they make salary of bus conductors 5 lakh rupees, everybody will go to that job. They will give up computer science also. So, what I am trying to say is, society collectively is not necessarily very sensible. They always take the path of least resistance. They always go where they can gain maximum with little effort. They go where there is as much leisure, relaxation, and flexibility. That's why everybody wants to, unfortunately, go to America, because in America, tremendous amount of freedom and flexibility is there, almost to the point of being idiot. You can still be an idiot and live well in America. Okay. Best example is the current president of America. Okay. So which are knowledge systems operate? There are plenty of knowledge systems. Only isolated societies have maintained their original knowledge system. They have little or no interaction with them, with others. Many such isolated knowledge systems, which we will call by some other name later, they now are there in mostly in Andamans and Amazon. I have met some of them in Andamans. I have not been to Amazon. But they are there even in isolation. There are a lot of them in small pockets in Northeast India. In South India, two small tribes dominate. One are the Todas in Nilgiris. I don't know how many of you have gone and met them. The other tribes are the Irulas in South India, dominated by their presence in Tamil Nadu, who also who eat snake, who eat rats. They live with snakes, basically, Irulas. Okay? So, a great majority, however, use 2 to 3 different knowledge systems for different purposes.
चाय तो दे दो चीनी कम वाली चाय है चीनी कम वाली चाय है कि कॉफी है
Can you please mute and... So many of us use different knowledge system for different purposes, like what we are doing now. We are using Western education system, the universities and IITs, whatever, and we are using internet now. We are using online interaction mode. We are speaking in English, but hopefully our afternoon food and the dress you wear and the living style is all Indian. So I'm coming to this because this is one of the important things that is happening in the world today. So which knowledge systems now exist? Plenty, but predominantly 4 dominant knowledge systems. Predominantly 4 dominant knowledge systems exist.
ಇವಾಗ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ನೋಡಿ ಆರಾಮಾಗಿ ಹಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಮಾತಾಡ
One is the Western knowledge system. We call it WKS. It's predominantly found in Europe, North America, and China. Covers about 50% of the world population. Its other name is modern scientific system, but it relates to 75% of the current economy of the world. That is why English is an important language, not because it is a beautiful language, not because it is our mother tongue, but English is an economic language. It is the language of the world's economy. The other knowledge system is Arabic knowledge system. It's predominantly found in Middle East, North Africa, Indian subcontinent, Central Asia, Indonesia, and Malaysia. They cover about 30% of the world population, but it controls 70% of the world's petroleum economy. And even today, the entire energy is dominated by petroleum. That is why Middle East is a very important region today. Even though 50 years or 60 years back, nobody bothered. Nobody knew. In fact, majority of the population did not even know what is what there. Today, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, which was not even there 30 years back, right? All these have become important economic places because they have 70% of the energy money with them. The third knowledge system is Indian knowledge system, IKS. It's predominantly found in Indian subcontinent, Southeast Asia, Tibet, and Japan. Covers about 25% of the world population, and it also covers only 25% of the current economy, and it is growing. Okay. The fourth knowledge system is indigenous knowledge system. It exists in all parts of the world in isolation, more so in India, Africa, and South America. They cover only 5% of the world population, but it is this indigenous knowledge from where IKS, AKS, and WKS have all come out. Even now, many of what we call WKS or Arabic knowledge system or the Indian knowledge system has its roots in the local indigenous knowledge. Okay. Note, no society now lives exclusively on one knowledge system except the indigenous knowledge system. Many live with a blended version of 2, 3, or 4. For example, majority of us, we live with a blended version of Indian knowledge system for our lifestyle, our food habits, our dress habits, our social customs, religious practices, etc. But our salary, work, professional work, and our economic activity is directly related to Western knowledge. Okay. Whereas, let's look at people who, let's say the Muslims in India. They live with a blended knowledge system of 3. At home, and their socio-religious practices are Arabic. The dealing with the society at large in India is IKS. Their economy and productivity and occupation may be Western. So this is typically how things are happening all over the world. The ratio will change. Some people who are having traditional occupation like farmers, they probably have 80 to 85% IKS and maybe 10 to 15% other knowledge system. Whereas we teachers and faculty in colleges, we have about 35% Western knowledge and maybe 65% Indian knowledge, right? Whereas somebody in the IT company may already be 75% Western knowledge system. So this is the way things are happening everywhere. And we are now trying to understand this and also see what we can do. What are we focusing on? It's clear that currently in India, we all lead a life based on blended knowledge system dominated by IKS and considerable Western knowledge system. The formal education, economy, and industry is dominated by WK. It is here we are questioning what IKS is and attempting to put more IKS into our existing lifestyle, as it is clear that we are now facing more negative issues with overload of Western knowledge system. For example, at least at college level where you deal with students and others, one thing is very obvious. They have some of the world's worst food habits. Many elite institutions, now pizza and pasta have become lunch and breakfast items. Pizza and pasta are some of the world's worst food, particularly pizza, most unhealthy. Not only that, the Western knowledge has also made sure that the world is unsustainable. For example, we have a serious climate problem, which is completely introduced, grown, and now nurtured by the Western knowledge system. Okay. Petroleum economy is one of the reasons. Okay. What is the dream? To leave a significant component of IKS only. Now, is it possible and meaningful or productive? For example, with IKS, you cannot make a mobile phone. Just forget it. If you say you are depending on IKS, you have to forget mobile phone. You have to forget internet. Of course, you may have an alternative. You may spend more time talking to your neighbors, gossiping more. Well, that's it. So you can't have mobile phone. Be very clear. Okay. Now, can I convert all the industries to handloom and handicrafts and other things? No, it will not work. Okay. It will not be very productive. It may give gainful employment to more, but it will definitely not have a significant say in the GDP. So all these are issues when you look at various knowledge systems. So what is Western and a little of the Arabic knowledge system? This is something that evolved over 3,000 years. So the Western knowledge system and the Arabic knowledge system is something that's evolved over 3,000 years in the socio-cultural geography of Greece, Rome, and Middle East, what one calls the Fertile Crescent. All factors have played their role. There is one book that is sacred to each of them. They are monotheist, which does not include female and child gods. So there is no representation of for women and children, which constitutes approximately total about 75% of the population. There is no representation for them in the pantheon. Okay. Its main character is belief in redemption at death, and the moral compass grounded in belief in only one God, which is male, and in one book. We call it the Abrahamic, whether they are Jews, Christians, or Muslims, all of them have only one holy book. Whereas we have 12 holy books, and it causes confusion, rift and all. But more important, there is no one single entity or authority. More interesting, it has been institutionalized very early. So you have had a central authority long back. For example, Vatican was created around 326 AD, little over 200 and 300 years of Jesus Christ's death. Okay. So rebelling or questioning of tenets is not permitted, and it results either in excommunication or death. For example, how was Jesus Christ crucified? Jesus Christ made a statement that the temple of Jerusalem is a den of thieves. So that was in some sense blasphemous, and the Romans who were ruling Jerusalem area that side were provoked into taking action on him, and eventually he was crucified. From that, Christianity, modern Christianity started, right? So the tenets in these are very harsh, very cruel, and very acquiring, all the time trying to grab. For example, no heaven for non-followers, eye for an eye. This has come from Hammurabi Code. Death to Kafirs. This is the kind of tenets with which these things have developed. Okay. You see, very strangely, just few hundred years before, there is a very famous place called Carthage in North Africa. By 5th century BC, they were the richest people on earth, much richer than the Greeks and later the Romans. And they had a very prominent female god called Tanit. This is by 1st century AD, all the female gods had been removed in the Middle East and in the in fact, Greeks had female gods. They had a lot of local gods. All of them was suppressed and removed. Okay. This is where all this happened. This is the Fertile Crescent. Euphrates and Tigris Valley. Majority of it is what is the Old Testament. And here, modern Israel and Syria, Jordan, and other places, which had the New Testament and other things. This is where Greece and Rome is. This is Alexandria and Egypt, which has also played. This is the complete desert. Further south is Mecca and Medina. But this is where it evolved, what one calls the fertile present. And here you'll see, other than the river valleys, much of it is desert. Where the fish evolved. Now look at this. What about the Indian knowledge system? This is something that's evolved over 5,000 years. So our knowledge system is far more time tested than anything. Okay. And in the socio-cultural geography, what you call Bharat or Indian, here also all significant factors have played their role. However, there is no one book that is sacred. We are polytheists. We have numerous female and child gods. That is why our knowledge system is highly non-individualist. You can't say who started it. There you can identify Abraham, Christ, and Prophet. Very easy to point out the starting point. Here, who started, we don't know. Its main character is belief in rebirth. This is one other thing. And the moral compass grounded in two words called dharma and karma. Okay. It has either not been institutionalized or has multiple institutions around different philosophies. Thus, multiple parallel authority, each can suit oneself or move to the other or completely disown. Non-believers are also part of it as much as the believers are. So even the atheists are part of this. You don't have to believe in any one God or one philosophy. Rebelling or questioning of tenets is permitted and very frequent. That's why you have so many, cults and so many divisions. Okay. So each saint or each philosopher questions the previous, starts his own. You have thousands of followers. That becomes its own group. They may live for some time. Some may evolve and go. For example, the famous Ramakrishna mission, right? After all, Ramakrishna is only about 130 years old. Before that, it was not there. It's very popular. It has a large followers. It has its own institution. It has its own tenets. It may resemble, have sharing with other things, but that's incidental and accidental. It is not part of the design, right? So new things come. We don't know. Today, Jaggi Vasudev, Sri Ravi Shankar, they are all cults. They are quite popular. They are economically very rich and powerful politically too. We don't know. 100 years from now, they may become some prophet, some saint, some god also. We don't know. Okay. However, the tenets in these are very gentle, bountiful, and giving in nature. That has allowed tremendous amount of evolution. Whenever there is a conflict, there is no killing. Conflict means you move away, start your own. You may have your followers who like you or you believe in them. Otherwise, it will die off. Okay. Why it is so gentle and bountiful is because in the circumstances, Indian knowledge system evolved with this kind of environment. Exceedingly beautiful, bountiful. You had enough to eat. Water was there throughout the year. Nobody had to steal from others. Nobody had to act violently on others to live. There was plenty for everybody and enough was left. That's why they started sharing with everybody. It's interesting. This is one of the last villages before Mount Everest. And in this kind of environment, in this kind of background, you don't even think of anything, low level. You become highly evolved, very liberal, always giving away, that kind of thing. Okay? So what of India or Bharat that is proven? And so you can see there must be some value for the knowledge system, right? We will see what the value was. We will look at India, how India was 2000 years back. Well, that's important because that's about the time the peak of the Indian knowledge system had reached, and then there was a plateau for about another 1000 years. This 2000-year-old situation was a mature situation. So the earlier situation to this must have started about 1500 to 2000 years back, approximately 3,500 years back. It started. Okay. Then it became mature, and what you see now, what I'm going to show now is 2000 years. It mainly centered around two things: natural resources, which was plenty in India, and converting natural resources to products, which was the work of skill. India, till the advent of British rule, was a highly industrialized society. Only an industrialized society, you will have economic growth. In an agricultural society, there is no economic growth. In an agricultural society, people live well, hand to mouth, everybody has enough to eat, but there is nothing left for anything else. Okay? It's only an industrial society where there is stupendous economic growth. At least in earlier time period, people came to share economic values through trade. Okay? What happened? This led to mixing of culture, language, knowledge, more than mixing, transfer, translation, sometimes misrepresentation, and many times stealing also. We'll see this. I don't know how many of you are from history, anthropology, archaeology background. Only those people would have seen this map. Okay, this is a map how India looked 2000 years back, and you can see here things which you are famous with. Okay, there is a place called Supala. Supala is now the current local station in Western Railway in Bombay called Nallasopara. Then there is Kalyan, which is again a railway station today. So Mandagora. Mandagora is Madgaon today. All the way Muziris, which is just on the outskirts of Cochin today. Then this is Korkai. Korkai is what is today's Tuticorin. Similarly here, what is Machilipatnam today, etc., etc. Whereas the west coast, you see here, every 50 kilometers, you had a port which was doing trade with West, Eastern Africa, Middle East, Central Asia, Rome, and Greece. Okay. Today, Cairo was not there those days. Alexandria was there, but more important place were this Bernice and here. This is the place where today what you call Aden. This is a place where just at the beginning of monsoon trade winds, about per year about 300 ships would come here to various parts. Why? To do trade. For example, iron and steel and cloths were taken here from here. I'll come to that later. This is the Silk Route. Silk Route is just 10% of the original trade route. Even though Silk Route is written so much and lot of claims are done, Silk Route is a minor deviation from the major thing. Okay. So many times people would travel from Rome through sea, come here by land. Those days, Suez Canal was not there, and then again take the ship and reach here. Many of them started doing more interesting things. They reached here, and instead of going by sea, they would travel by land all the way here, which is close to what is today Tunisia, Morocco, and cross over a small portion of the sea. This part is important because this is the part of North Africa where all the nice things for Europe went from India. We'll come to that later. Okay. So this was a very, very rich thing. I'll come to that. Okay. 2000 years before that, this is how it started. You had small boats, both land route, small boats who would never cross the sea. They would always come close to the coast, what is called coast hugging journey. They were not sure what it is here. So they would always, and this is the place. The early Sindhu Saraswati or Indus Valley civilization, which provided tremendous amount of richness. See, all this is desert. But this is a place, fertile thing, where lot of things are grown. This is the Himalayan, uh, lower Himalayas, plenty, bountiful trees, vegetables, fruits, people, culture, so many things, right? What they were trading, very interesting. They were trading in spices, ivory, metal, cloth, aromatic flower, silk, and precious stones. Plenty of clothes, particularly cotton. And what they would bring wine and they would bring gold. Only two things. So the ship was 90% empty. They would bring some wine and plenty of gold. And this is a first century document. First century Greek document documenting all the ports and the routes. And you had many empires, the Roman, the Indo-Scythian, Kingdom of Assum, Nabatean Kingdom, everybody was interacting with India. Predominantly the West Coast. Not just that, others were also coming. For example, people in China, the whole of Southeast Asia, all the way from Malaysia and Indonesia would come and trade here. In fact, Mysore was the world's most globalized town in the world. You had people from 40 different parts of the world coming there. So Chinese would bring their porcelain and other things, and the Romans would pick it up. They would not go all the way to China. Chinese would not go all the way till Arabia. So this was the meeting point, particularly southern, what is today Kerala. Those days there was no Kerala. It was all Tamil. Kerala is, Malayalam is 11th or 12th century language. So the whole thing was Tamil. And you had, and the only port to the North Indians was this Tamralipti, which is just near modern Calcutta. That's one of the reasons Ashoka waged a war, because he wanted access to sea, and Odisha had a very good sea trade route. Okay. Not just that, more interesting, you see, people came all the way from almost till south of what is today South Africa. Whole of Eastern Africa was trading with us. But they also had some their own spices, but mostly trading. Okay. This is what is called the Mausam or the monsoon winds, trade winds. And you see how rich the Southeast Asia was linked with India, and India was linked with West Asia. The proof of how rich it was comes another 500 years before. That is approximately 3000 years before, 500 BC. This is the Achaemenid Empire of the Persians. So they extended all the way from North Africa, what is today edge of Greece, the entire Turkey, Iran, Iraq, everything. And you see their kingdom extended up to the Sindhu River, just up to that. Vast empire, small portion of what is Sindhu River today. But what is interesting is each province brought revenue. So 450 BC, this Achaemenid Empire got maximum revenue from a small region of their empire, which is the Indus Valley civilization. That was the amount of wealth that this region provided to them just around 3000 years back. Okay. Even more interesting is this map, which is a map of the peak of the Roman Empire. This is the Roman Empire. They had occupied England, but they had not touched Ireland yet. Whole of Spain, France, Germany, West Europe. They didn't go to Scandinavia. And of course, the what is today Jordan, Israel, and this. And of course, most important, the Nile Valley. They didn't touch the rest of Africa. This part is all desert. And of course, North Africa, Carthage, modern Morocco, all these places, Libya. So this golden colors that you see here is part of the Roman Empire, but it's also what has been documented very well in the last 300 years of places where all people have found Roman gold coins. So these are all the places where people have found Roman gold coins. Not surprising because it's part of the Roman Empire. But finding Roman gold coins here, plenty in Sri Lanka, near Cuttack and Bhubaneswar, lot of it in the Kerala coast, little inside, including Karur in Tamil Nadu. This is astonishing because it means Romans were coming with gold coins, trading here and going back. That's how South India became so rich. And when this trade collapsed, so many other problems started. Okay. So the question is, if the knowledge system provided such high concentration of wealth, what is it that we could do? Is the knowledge system foolproof? Is there no hope for correction if it is wrong? That is important. Okay. All knowledge systems, if you test them, they can be found to be wrong. The only hope is self-correction, adaptation, change, or reforms. If all this, you have to abandon it. So look at conflict in knowledge system. Take the case of Galileo Galilei. He was born in 1564. He died in 1642. But in 1632, he wrote a book which is called The Dialogue Concerning Two Chief World Systems. Based on his astronomical observations, he made a claim that Earth revolves around Sun, and I have proof that Earth revolves around Sun based on his observations. Immediately, the Pope then, is the Pope Urban VIII, he called him and told, you are telling against Christianity. It is blasphemy, therefore we'll put you to death, because Bible says Earth is the center and Sun revolves around. Of course, they didn't kill him, but they put him under house arrest in 1632 till he died in 1642, so that he does not communicate to others. Okay. Similar thing happened. There was another Vatican seminar on November 22nd, 2011, when Big Bang was proved. And for that seminar, the Pope had invited Stephen Hawking also. So caution is, knowledge systems can be very rigid and very subjective. Conflicts and contradictions is common in every knowledge system. Therefore, the goodness of a knowledge system is not how really good it is, but whenever there is a conflict or a contradiction, how does the knowledge system evolve and accommodate that? How does it correct it? How does it incorporate changes? That is the greatness. So a flexible knowledge system is the only way to allow people and society to evolve. You see this famous painting where Galileo is defending himself against a Vatican organized group, and the soldier is ready here either to behead him or take him. Similar thing happened. Every knowledge system has it. You see here, this I'm sure all of you recognize this man, the world's greatest chess player of all times. He had to go out of a tournament after playing the first match because, that too in December 24, very recent. That is because in the tournament rules are, you have to wear suit and, woolen suit and pant and play. Like you see all these Gukesh and all wearing that in the tournaments. Whereas Carlson was wearing jeans and jacket. So how is jeans and jacket not related to playing chess well? I don't understand. This is how knowledge systems are. 90% of the knowledge system rules are either outdated or incompatible, not allowing for change, or sometimes silly. So even though IKS was doing so well, what was the main reason for the decline? The decline started when the Arabic knowledge system was being imposed from the 11th century, just when the Delhi Sultanates came. Okay. It continued till 18th century because it was not fully controlled. All the time there was war and expansion. So the local population somehow lived. They managed to retain some. That's one reason why South India perhaps has better IKS, Indian knowledge system retained even now, because we didn't have this kind of suppression. Okay. The real damage came from the British colonial rule, particularly this. You see, this is the original Macaulay's address to the British Parliament on 2nd February 1835. He says, I have traveled across the length and breadth of India. I have not seen one person who is a beggar, one who is a thief, such moral high values. We should only way to conquer her is to break her spiritual and cultural heritage. And therefore, I propose that we replace our old and ancient education system with what is called the Macaulay system. Of course, he even says, I have no knowledge of Sanskrit or Arabic, but he says English is superior to Sanskrit and Arabic. This is the kind of, and you see here how they were treating us. Royal Simla Club. No dogs are Indians. This is exactly how they treated us, and this is exactly how we treat others now. Why is your university or college so bureaucratic? Macaulay is dead and gone, but Macaulay's followers are there as vice chancellors and principals even today. I'll tell you how bad it is. Look at this. This is a certificate called Kursi Nashin in the Delhi district, issued on the first day of July 1887. What is this certificate? This certificate is given to individuals who, when they go to a British office, and while waiting, they can sit down. Otherwise, they will have to stand. Only with this certificate, you can sit there in the chair. Please remember, in our own country, even to sit down, we had to get a certificate from the British. It is no different. Why is it that all of you go to the principal's or the HOD's room and you stand? You don't sit. Why does the HOD or the principal go to vice chancellor's room and stand? This is what every government office you go, you have to stand and talk. It is that bad. Even now we continue with all the garbage we have been dished out. And the Britain talks so much. You look at this here. There was no divorce in Britain up to 1844. Instead of divorce, wife selling was common. The last wife sale in Britain occurred in Horsham for 30 shillings. This is the kind of culture of people who ruled us and gave us even worse culture than what we had. Our culture was far superior. All this is not told to you. You are told a lot of rubbish in your classes because you have learned that, and you tell the same thing to your students. You don't tell reality. See here how bad it was. Graves of Catholic wife and Protestant husband who are not allowed to be buried with each other. Even in death, they were not allowed. That's how demarcation was there between Protestant and Christian, even though both follow Jesus Christ. Such is the state of society everywhere. Be very clear. So what does a knowledge system do? Knowledge systems gives you a culture. It gives you an identity. It gives you tremendous economic value to live. At the same time, there is wisdom accumulated over years. Particularly IKS, the wisdom is in oral and written traditions, predominantly oral. I'll come to that why it was oral predominantly in my next talk. Tremendous diversity. You must go see whole of India. Every 30 miles if you travel, the language dialect changes. Every 100 miles, food habits change. Every 200 miles, dress changes. Such amount of diversity, right? And lot of utilitarian and welfare aspects was there. You see, all knowledge systems are unsustainable. The only sustainable knowledge systems are indigenous, including IKS is not sustainable. IKS is the least unsustainable. Maximum unsustainable knowledge system is Western, followed by Arabic, followed by Indian. See, this is a community for 100 people in Brazil. No walls, common space belonging to everybody. No distinct ownership. They all live very, very harmoniously. Even we have such people in Andamas. These are the middle Andamans who survived the tsunami. They have their own native knowledge, which allowed them not to die in tsunami, whereas people in Nagapattinam, Tuticorin in east coast of India died with all the modern knowledge. We have plenty of indigenous knowledge, one of the world's highest concentration, more so in Andamans, variety of them. Okay. So the Nicobaris, other generic tribes, Jarva, Shompels, Ongis, Santalis, so many, and plus all this Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Bastar region, phenomenal amount of indigenous knowledge. See how indigenous knowledge was in Africa 2000 years back. As soon as Islam and Christianity started expanding, today the of Africa looks like this. Almost this is equator, this is Tropic of Cancer. Almost the southern part is all Christian. So all this diversity has been killed. Native languages have been killed, native cultures have been killed, native gods have been killed. All this is now replaced by very monolithic expressions. So NEP has introduced IKS to understand ourselves better and hopefully learn from it. There are problems. There is a shortage of trained faculty for IKS. Employability other than culture, heritage, archaeology, which has so much of employment these days. The other domains with IKS have no employment. There are students are not keen because they are more Western in their outlook, and it may increase the burden of credits for students. These are the standard references, many of which has been written after the IKS was proposed by the UGC. Each has a different outlook. So if you, depending on your background, you must pick a particular book and read. But my suggestion from what I do and what my experience is, which is considerable, this is one of the best books you should read independent of IKS. If you are an academician, if you are a teacher, if you have not read this book by now, then there is something wrong with you. This is a book which is one of the world's greatest book written in the last 100 years. It was released in 2014. So in about 10 years, 70 million copies, and it has been translated to 65 different languages already. So this is a book about humanity, how humans evolved and what they did, how things happened, how various knowledge systems developed, everything. And it is written by this Yuval Harari, who's a professor in anthropology and archaeology in Israel. He's a PhD in Cambridge, and he said he made a mistake going and doing PhD there. But what is interesting for him is he has been coming to India for the last 20 years, for 2 months every year. He comes to Nasik, place near Nasik called Igatpuri, where there is Goenka's Vipassana Meditation Center. So he's been a trained Vipassana meditation program for last 20 years, and he gives that as a key factor in his ability to think and write a book like this. And only one Indian language has this book. This has been translated to Tamil only. But it's one of the greatest books you could ever read in your life. Please do it now that you are alive at the time this book has been released. The next book, exclusively to learn about IKS, this is the best book, released about 6 months back. You have about 5 or 10 videos on YouTube about him. You can check William Dalrympe, the Golden Road book. So there were 10 or 20 short episodes. He himself expressed correctly about IKS, very well researched. See, this book, all these books is no comparison to this, because it is original travel and research, okay, across Central Asia, West Asia, Southeast Asia, India, China, Tibet, everywhere he has researched, okay. And beautiful, this. And of course, there's a special focus by Government of India on Indian knowledge systems. For example, one of the world's most important thing we must recognize is we have a problem bigger than COVID, which has already emerged in India. That is, for those of you who are in microbiology and other things may know, it's called AMR, antimicrobial resistance. And it is going to take so many lives in future because India has the world's largest population now, which are immune to antibiotics. This is because for last 40 years, Indian doctors have been prescribing antibiotics without any care or concern. And Indian population has become so bad now. In fact, even last week we had a big advertisement from, of all places, Karnataka government saying AMR is a big issue. And that's why you see many senior doctors are dying in hospitals. Hospitals, super specialty hospitals, which have all kinds of diseases put together. That's a place where the super bug has come. Bombay is a hotbed, particularly one of the worst places is Bombay. So that's because of WKS. Okay. So IKS is important and many useful aspects have neither been given its due nor evaluated effectively. IKS has to contend and compete with other knowledge systems which are very coercive or very seductive. For example, in your class students, for them four mantras are fast food, internet or mobile, jeans and t-shirt. You can't beat that. You buy one jeans, the whole of your undergraduate program you can cover with that, and you need to wash it once in 6 months. And t-shirt, very easy to wash. You can use it after washing in the morning in the college, use it as a night dress in the night. Appa, this kind of flexibility is very difficult to beat. So these are the forces with which IKS is competing. And modern maths, technology and life sciences, particularly bio and pharma, now rule the roost. All of you would have taken some Saridon, some paracetamol, some Dolo. Every week you would have taken. Okay. The question is how, where, when, and how much of IKS to be positioned in this life. What components of Indian knowledge system can you put? Because Indian knowledge system is the most sustainable one of the lot. The only alternative is to leave all this, go into the forest and live like hunter-gatherers, which is a sustainable society. So this is the option. And last, there's an interesting slide. You see here, these are the divorce rates, percentage of marriages that end in divorce. Look at Portugal and Spain, 94 and 85%. Portugal and Spain are the place where Christianity started in a very big way. Okay. All the colonization started. After all, Christopher Columbus, Vasco da Gama come from Spain and Portugal. Similarly here, plenty of other things. Turkey, Egypt, South Africa, Iran, Tajikistan, all of them have crossed 10%. The Western world has crossed 50%. Even America is 45%. India is 1%. Of course, it's increasing. I'm not saying no. But so what Western knowledge system and Arabic knowledge system focused on was good institutions. Therefore, their family became very weak. Family system became very weak. Whereas the Indian knowledge system didn't bother about creating institutions. Therefore, the family structure remained very well. So this is an indication of how IKS is countering or competing with other knowledge systems, etc. Okay. So